In the previous segments, we've covered quite a bit of information. Human energy and behavioral change, the role of the outsider. You've been introduced to the seed scale model, and in that we've looked at what a chaotic governing system is. We've looked at what seed scale really comprises of and how we're going to use that as a methodology or even as in loosely framed as a technology in harnessing human energy and directing it towards some productive means for the communities that are being served. And then we looked at what the 4 principles are, right? The 4 principles for decision making, helping us to build from success, developing a 3-way partnership, making evidence-based decisions, and focusing on behavioral change. Okay, so we're moving out of the 4 principles, and we're going to dive in now to the 7 goals. Okay, so yesterday was all about learning about the principles we're going to use to make effective decisions, but that didn't give us any necessarily a clear path for action. In this section, we're going to now talk about more of a clear path for action and what's going to be required for us to be able to know how to take steps and in what order we might want to take those steps. In order to better understand the 7 goals, we're going to do a little bit of background information about a really important set of principles in a chaotic environment. When we've got 10,000 variables, we can't necessarily step in and say, okay, this is exactly what we're going to do, this, and this. But we need to have a system of organizing our actions so that they're all kind of make sense and in line and contextual, but also not too rigid. And these are 3 words that I'm sure you're familiar with: mission, goals, and objectives. And I'm going to share a little bit about them with you today that might help you to better understand them or use them all together in a way that makes a little bit more sense. So in order to be able to really understand, in order to be able to delineate what our actions are, we want to start with what our mission is. Okay, and our mission is our overarching conceptual thing that we want to call it. Our mission is the purpose. The mission is the end result. Okay, and typically, oh, that's not going to work, is it? Can you hand me that, Brianna? Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. How about that's our last technical thing that we deal with? Does that sound okay? Great. Great. Okay. So our mission is the purpose, okay, for why we're there. And in most community development situations, your purpose is typically going to revolve around something that's relatively general, which would be like the increase in quality of life, or the decrease in mortality, or the decrease in a couple things. So we're going to start at a broad space because this is what we want to achieve. Now, as we delineate that further, the next thing we're going to get to is what our goals are. And our goals are going to be the conceptual ends that we're trying to be able to get to, sometimes that we can't exactly like put our finger on, okay? For example, a business would have goals. They'd want to be able to have a really effective marketing plan for their company. They might want to be able to have a really effective administrative department. They might want to decrease their costs in manufacturing or expedite shipping. Okay, it's hard to put your finger on expedite shipping because there's a lot of things that go into that, and it's hard to put your finger on decrease manufacturing costs because there's a lot of things that go into it. But that's the conceptual space that you want to be able to get to, and ultimately your collection of goals are going to help you to be able to get to your mission. So again, in the business example, your mission might be to maximize profits, and your goals in order to be able to maximize profits are to decrease costs in manufacturing, decrease costs in shipping, increase your marketing, and decrease your overhead as a company and your administrative side of things. So those are the goals that you want to be able to get towards in order to be able to achieve your mission. Your objectives now become the actionable tasks that you can then step into in order to be able to achieve your goals. Again, it's hard to put your finger on what does it mean to decrease costs in manufacturing, but now once we have a brainstorm session around that, we'll see that very clear steps will start to emerge. Okay, in order for us to be able to decrease costs in manufacturing, now we have to do this, 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 and this. And those become our objectives. So ultimately what we see when we delineate our action plan for really anything that we're engaged with, and in this situation, specifically community development work, we're gonna start with a mission. From the mission, we're gonna see what are a couple of clear conceptual goals we're gonna try and work towards. And then from that point, we're gonna look at what our objectives, we're gonna break down objectives from those goals. And not only are we gonna do this, but we're gonna teach and work with the community members that we're supporting and teach this basic planning strategy. Because while it sounds pretty simple in explaining it, many times people get into a brainstorm session and they don't know if they're talking about missions, goals, or objectives, and everyone's just trying to throw ideas out of what they should do. But to come back to this very basic, proven way to delineate mission, goals, objectives, it sets people up for success, both yourselves as community development workers, more importantly, the community members that are engaged in the community development work. Remember, we're talking about more importantly than we have really positive end results in working with the community, is that we're leaving the community with systems, with processes, so that as they're confronted with new challenge in the future, they have the tools, right? The information, the skills, the capacities to address those new challenges confidently. And being able to say, what's our mission? Okay, what goals are going to be able to be required to achieve that? And now further, what our objectives is a powerful tool that we're going to leave behind. So taking action in an environment with 10,000 variables, we're going to break it down to this type of thing. It's going to set us up for success. Another example for a series of goals would be in the agricultural process. So of course in farming, we're going to want to be able to maximize our yield. That's pretty straightforward. So some goals that we'd want to be able to do in doing that would be we want to prepare the soil, plant seeds, keep it hydrated, ensure nutrients, protect from weeds and pests, and then harvest the crop. And so the reason that we're going to look at this for a second is because we can see that some sets of goals, they naturally come in cycles, okay, where one goal naturally leads into the next, which naturally leads into the next. But that doesn't mean that it's a hard, fast, you do step 1 and then step 2 and then step 3, but they're connected goals that have a certain sequential feel to them, but they vary in importance at any given stage, right? We always want to make sure that we're protecting from pests and from weeds and such, but sometimes we're in planting mode, so we're really focused on planting the seeds. Other times, once it's all growing, then really we're just focused on keeping it hydrated and protecting from plants. Before we prepare the soil, we want to make sure that we put several days into taking all the compost out of our pit and put it into the soil. So we're going to have these goals, and at certain points, some of them are going to be more important than others. They're going to have a certain sequence that flows throughout them, and by doing all of them, we're going to reach our ultimate mission. And it's important to recognize that in most situations where there's a cycle of goals that are required to achieve it, in order to achieve the mission, all of the goals have to be able to be achieved. In agricultural development, if just one of these is missing, then we're not going to achieve our objective of working to be able to have a harvest. And it's going to be similar in community development work, well, maybe not as explicit, but if not all of the goals are addressed, then we're going to find some major pitfalls which are going to decrease our capacity to really fulfill our ultimate missions. Okay. Another side note that I want to mention at this point is a term called process benefits, which we'll talk throughout this section as well. What a process benefit is essentially when we are working towards a goal, there's actually going to be things that we're going to be able to achieve in the context of working towards the goal that might be more on the periphery of what that goal is. So we're working towards this, but then we're in that process, we're able to also achieve this. An example of a process benefit would be as we work within the three-way partnership to be able to achieve our goal, we actually strengthen the three-way partnership to make it better to achieve our goal next time. So our goal was to be able to, in the situation, in the simulation in Uganda, our goal is to be able to solve the pest problem. A process benefit is we've strengthened the three-way partnership, and now we're able to use that to accomplish more things in the future. And we're going to see this term come up a couple times, and I want you guys to know what it means. Okay, so stepping into our 7 goals for action. Quickly, and please don't try and digest this all, but our 7 goals are establishing leadership, establishing a starting point, developing leaders' capacities, making informed decisions, determining directions and partners, coordinating people, resources, and time, and keeping momentum on track. And this is a cycle of 7 goals. We're going to go into them one by one, and these are going to give us all of the clues that we're going to need for action to be able to move through a development setting effectively.